Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host.
Hello everyone and welcome to the show. It's Trevor with you today, and my guest for this episode is the Film Festival Doctor, also known as Dr. Rebekah Smith. Now, Rebekah leads an award-winning consultancy specializing in film festival strategy, creating success for her clients, which has so far enabled them to win over 1,000 awards. So she knows what she's talking about. She's also passionate about nurturing filmmakers and helping entrepreneurs to find their sole purpose. She's captured a lot of their practical steps for that in her book, Born to Do It, which we're going to dig into in a minute. She's here to tell us a lot more than that, though. So welcome, Rebekah. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon from Texas.
Great to have you on the show. Now, you are originally from the UK, aren't you? So we can fly the British flag a little bit, even though you're very well known in South Africa, I know as well, and you're based in Texas and you work from there too. Maybe just to kick us off, share a little bit. You've been in the industry 10, 11 years or so or more. So there's a lot that you could unpack, but just a couple of points on your journey, if you like, that's brought you from where you started out, now setting up the company and helping filmmakers.
Yeah, it's been quite an unexpected journey because my original life plan was to work in the world of academia and become a full-time lecturer in film and audience research. And I also knew that deep down it wasn't my passion, but I presumed it was because people said I should do it because I was going to be good at it. So I thought, well, that's what I need to keep doing, surely. And my whole life changed when I got asked to help out and co-produce a film festival in Wales called the Abertoir Horror Festival. And my friend ran that, and he's a brilliant festival director. And I was like, yeah, that will give me something to distract me from the PhD and distract me from writing all the time, and to instead, just do something that's different. And that hobby was actually what I realized. Actually, producing film festivals was my life purpose, my sole purpose. I should be doing this because I came alive and actually felt myself than I did previously. I didn't feel me or the real me when I was doing my PhD. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it just wasn't, as I say, the core of me. And then I noticed there was a gap in the market when I was speaking to filmmakers at the festival, that they were finding it difficult to get their film seen in festivals because they didn't have any people they could turn to who were film festival consultants to help get their films into festivals. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to take this massive leap of faith. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a company that will help get my clients' films in festivals because they need help, and it's a massive niche. It is a niche thing. No one's really doing it, but I'm convinced I can make this work. Even though people said to me, it's going to be tough, I'm going to do this. So it was a lot of personal development work during that time. And it really helps you grow with your own business too. That was something I did not expect. Literally going to Wales and living there for the rest of my life on a farm is not reality right now. No way. It's this complete opposite. My lifestyle is so different compared to what I presumed it might be.
Yeah. It's interesting actually you say that, because as you were sharing that, I was thinking through, there's sort of levels in the sense of discovery, because you were good at teaching film. So for some people it's like, well, this is what I'm good at, so this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But the key thing you said, but you weren't as passionate about that. You enjoyed it, but you didn't really come alive until you moved into the production side of it, or getting involved in that element. So I think that's a key learning point, which encourages me actually, because we're both in the same area in the sense I don't deal with films, but I coach, so I help people work through processing what's my purpose, what's my passion, and all of that. So to actually have that separate like that, just as I'm hearing, I think that's really good. I like that. It's an easy step to go from one to the other. So for people listening, if you're really good at something and you started a business on it, just check in and make sure that you're passionate about it, and it's not just what you feel you should do because I don't know what else I would do. It's finding how to be passionate about using what you like, isn't it? Because you didn't suddenly change and do something completely different. You were already gravitating towards what you were good at, but you found like a different expression for it, I suppose is the way to put it.
Yes, because I've always known that I have loved film. So people telling me, you should do academia and teach film and all this because you'd be good at it, then yes, I was kind of following the right path. It was still in the world of film. It was just completely different area. It was going more into production, more into the film industry than it was academia and film. They're very different kind of worlds in the way that, you engage with them and the clientele. So I was on the right path. It just took me, I thought I'd be going just forwards, but I kind of went on the U-turn, which ended up coming back to the right place.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people are nodding as they're hearing you on that one. Definitely. I think that's part of the, I suppose, the adventure. If you sort of frame it the right way, it's an adventure. If you frame it a slightly different way, the challenge, the obstacles, it's not a direct mapped out path a lot of the time. Is that we find our way, don't we, as we go through different experiences and things we try. So that's, it's good to hear you say that. And now sort of 10, 11 years down the road, running a successful company, helping lots of people, lots of filmmakers, is really good. You've obviously, you've got the results there to see that, I'm now where I need to be. I'm passionate about it. I'm doing what I want to do as well. So that's good. Maybe just before we go on and talk a little bit about your book and that, go back just a little bit, because you said it was the leap of faith to really go into the business area. What was the biggest kind of challenge within that, to take that step to actually, I suppose, get out of your comfort zone and start the business? You thought maybe there is an option there, but we never quite know until we start. So what was the biggest challenge for you with that?
The biggest challenge was just believing that this business I was going to set up was going to work, because people did say to me is that, for one thing, you're doing something here which only one or two other people that we can see really do. It's not a particularly well-known business model. So you want to do something different. Who are you going to compare it to? How are you going to build on it? You're going to create it yourself? Because if you do, great, but people might not want to work with you and pay you in the beginning until you've got a track record. So I had that ahead of me, and I was like, well, I'll work for free if I have to prove this works. But it was remaining strong when people were negative. So I moved away from negative people who were saying things like, you can't do this, you have to have a backup plan, it's not going to work, how are you going to make money from it, how are you make a living from it? People were very negative. I said, well, there's a demand for it, so I can do it. And it was tough, because I was like one of those people that had entrepreneurial brain, but hadn't had any experience, being an entrepreneur and launching businesses and all that kind of thing, and having to learn with the mistakes along the way. So the biggest thing was actually just really trusting myself and trusting my belief that I could make this work, and it would go from a niche luxury service to a in-demand service. And that's what I wrote on my business plan in 2010, at the end of 2010. And that's where it is now, an in-demand service. So I've moved away from people thinking this is like, oh my goodness, what's this? Let's have a festival strategist. This is so high end, to like, this is a normal part of the process. This is incredibly important part of the process. And it's essential to our team.
Yeah, absolutely. Longevity is a good pointer, that you've hit the market, you've met a need, and you're developing and helping people that way. So yeah, really key point that. How would you say, what would you say, I suppose, really, for people that they're looking to define more their sole purpose? They know it's business somewhere along the line. You've touched on a few things already, what you're good at, and you had a desire in a certain area. But what would you say, anything else to help people get a bit more clarity on what else they should do with that?
In terms of finding their sole purpose?
Yeah.
Now, the sole purpose is a really interesting thing, because sometimes it's not obvious to people, and it can be one of the hardest things to do, to tune into, because when you've got other noise in the background and your head's chattering or mind chatter or whatever, it's really important just to like clear that away and sit down and then think to yourself, what is it that I'm most drawn to, and what kind of activity or hobby could I do hours and lunch and dinner will pass and I'll still be doing it and I'll feel like I'm not working. What is it that is my passion? Even though people might not think of it as, say, a typical 9 to 5 job per se, or an area, what is it that I really want? Because obviously with myself is I was loving the festival world and getting, seeing all these films on the big screen, helping filmmakers. I was loving it. And people didn't think of first, there's a job here, there's a niche here. So don't get too worried about if you think there isn't a market at first, because there might be. For example, a friend of mine, and also I did a bit of work with him as well after that, but he was getting really depressed in his 9 to 5 admin job. It paid kind of well, but it was just literally paying the bills. Everyone's been there with that. And he was like, it's not very inspiring, but it just does the job. He was getting panic attacks on a Sunday night before going into work on Monday, and just wanting to come home, and energy was bad in the office and all that kind of thing. And I said to him, so what do you want to do? And he said, well, I love making candles, but that's not really a business. I went, well, there is a business here. You've got to find your niche. And then he realized that there was room for him in that market. And he had a very good product that was very unique, that all kind of aromatherapy spas and all these kind of places liked. So I said, I don't think you need to work anymore in a 9 to 5 job. So then he went from part-time to now this is a full-time business with worldwide shipping. Started off Instagram shop to become bigger and bigger with local restaurants and spas. And he didn't believe there was a market until he did his research, until he tuned into what he really wanted. And he didn't have to have that job. So it was quite a contrast. But that's the key thing to do, is to really ask yourself, what do I love? People say to me, you've turned a hobby into a job. And so I have. And that means you can too. And so just don't get any kind of limiting beliefs, like there's going to be no market. You don't know that till you research. Just really, first of all, pinpoint what is it that you love to do that doesn't feel like work.
Absolutely, yeah. And you have to overcome the thinking of, well, why could I do that? Do you know what I mean? It's like if everyone could really do what they wanted to and it wasn't a job, everyone would be doing it. It's like, well, you get to a point where you grow to that point, I think, your awareness changes. You find that that's possible, I think. And again, as you touched on it before, like there's the challenges, there's the voices, either our own voices, those around us that people mean well and they want to look after you, but it's like, what if you start that and it doesn't work, and you lose money and blah blah blah, fill in the blanks. Everybody listening knows those voices, and every now and again we have to silence them again, from ourselves and from others as well. But that's why we need a good friend and a good consultant and people around that will really support the idea that, well, actually, maybe. Because a lot of the time, you're right. It's like, well, there's nothing like that already. It's like, well, maybe that's the point. We don't necessarily need another one exactly the same. If there's a niche within it, then you can have multiple services, products the same. But what if it's completely different and you're the first person that's going to have enough courage to actually step out and form that company and head down that direction? So yeah, no, I know what you're saying on that. It's encouraging to hear you as well, because you've done it, you're where you are, you're building, getting stronger all the time as well. What would be one of the things that helps you stay focused on where you want to go? Do you have any sort of particular habits or routines that keep you centered, or is that a constant challenge because of the pressures around you to try something else or this, that, and the other?
My discipline and my drive, my why is what keeps me centered. So even on tough days, when I say tough days, it can be more like with my mental health, because I'm recovering from PTSD after having a traumatic incident getting into the States. Basically, in a nutshell, is I was ready to go and move last December 2020. But a lawyer that meant well wasn't experienced enough to know what was going on with the pandemic and the rules and how that changed with the border. So I ended up getting sent back to Mexico, where I was staying for 2 weeks and 7 months. So I had a lot of problems from that, which have just started to surface recently. So even on days like that, I still have my business and my clients, and that's what I love, because it's part of my identity. So it never goes. So because I'm strong in that respect with my company and I love what I do, and I have that drive, it's not like it's, a chore to do, which I can't stand. It's something I love to do. So my drive and discipline help me keep grounded no matter what's going on in myself and the world and whatever's happening. I always find a way around it, and I enjoy it. So if you're passionate about what you do, that will always stay there, and you'll always come back to it.
Yeah, that's good. It's like your North Star, isn't it? That you just
Exactly.
magnetic north, you just gravitate towards that. Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
that makes sense. We've talked a little bit about niche. Always good to hear different people's perspectives, particularly experts, about finding your niche or developing in a way that you can be successful and profitable. You've had a slightly, what I would say, more of an uphill struggle with that, because it is more of a unique role and service that you provide. And as you said, there's not that many people you could look at and compare and kind of take notes and all that. And you touched on the fact that you hadn't been trained in business when you sort of launched your company. So throwing all of that in the mix, you've come out very well. But how would you sort of help, maybe just one or two, it's a big subject, we've not got enough time to dig into all of it, but how would you, or what would you say to people listening that maybe are struggling with that, not really got much momentum going in my niche, I think I know what it is, but I'm not quite sure. How would you help them take steps to become more successful in pursuing their niche?
The key thing is to really know your niche inside out and where you fit and what you're good at. So, for example, say that you are great at social media and you've got a really good, you know how to use it inside out. But that's a big niche. So it's really important to laser focus on what area of that niche you are best at to build your business. So for example, you have to break it down. So so social media is what you're best at, but what aspect? Is it LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook? So pick one of those. And then you think, well, okay, well, I'm really good at LinkedIn more than on the other platforms. I know how to use that. So what do you do best with LinkedIn? Is it creating business marketing videos? Is it helping people build their profile to get job interviews? For example, you know what that is. And that is when you laser focus, you can then build your business and show yourself to be the expert on your social media channels and your promotion. That's absolutely crucial. By saying to somebody, I'm a social media expert, that's too broad. That's not really having in your niche. There's so much social media angles, aspects, and jobs and platforms. If you try to do all of that, you wouldn't be able to be an expert in your niche because it's far too big and wide. So really pinpoint what it is that you are good at in that area. And then you could do your research in terms of, what kind of companies need you to, let's say create business videos on LinkedIn, or, a business page on Facebook to get more clients, So then you can then figure out how to talk to your audience, your prospective clients, and then they'll see you as being the niche and being the leader of your niche, and there's no other reason not to invest.
Yep. Yeah, that's really good. Such a key point, or several points there. And that all links into your branding, doesn't it? Your branding kind of comes out from, right, I know who I'm talking to, I know how to communicate to my audience, and therefore the branding follows that. It sounds very simple when you say it like that. I know it's challenging, but it's certainly doable, isn't it? I mean, if you're in business, you're already doing that probably to some extent successfully, or still working the way out. If you're a customer, we deal with niches all the time. We just don't label them as that. We go certain places because we hear somebody's good at this, or this is what they do. So it makes perfect sense from that. Let's jump into, this is all really good, so thank you for that. We've got a little bit more time left, so I wanted to jump into the strategy side of it a bit. Now, I know in some ways the filmmaking strategy and getting your film promoted might be slightly different. Some of the nuts and bolts might be slightly different to other businesses and people listening, but there's a lot of universal principles, isn't there? So, and again, big question, we're only going to scratch the surface, but what would be, for people that are struggling, thinking, I know I need a strategy, sounds good, what does that look like? In a more of a vanilla way that will help everyone. just at this point. I think if you're making films and you want to get promoted, then talk to Rebekah direct. But for everybody else that is in a slightly different area, what would you say to encourage people, to help people with a strategy for promoting and becoming more successful in whatever it is that they're doing?
The key thing is to do your research with your competitors, and also in the whole market where there is a gap that you can really stand out and show your unique talent. Because even though there are, like, say, 1,000,000 hairdressers in the world, well, there's more than that, but there's a lot of hairdressers in the world. They're not all the same because they have their own unique talent that they bring. So, for example, say you are a hairdresser that's starting out and you've got a good client base but want to grow it and start, really building up, then do videos of showing how you are, say, the blonde hair whisperer, and how you are the one that is best at looking after blonde hair, for example. So do that research and see what's missing in the kind of pattern of advertising for your sector, and how you can do something different that'll really maybe shake up that model to make you stand out as being that kind of niche. It's always, the key thing is always to really home in on what you do and to present yourself a little bit more, say, unique and a bit more, edgier, to show that you are to be trusted and that you do things a little bit differently to like the norm. I mean, there are loads of life coaches, loads of business coaches. So how can you make business fun? How can you make life coaching fun? What is your take on it, and how is that different? For me, for example, there are festival strategists around. There's not just only like a few people. There is a few more now, but it's still not by any means oversaturated. It's a very specific thing. And I always say to my clients, and always the way I approach things, is to always really streamline and focus and home in on your niches. Think about festivals that are, say, for example, ones you might not have thought of, because they're going to fit your film. I mean, you say your film is a female-directed environmental documentary. You've got loads of festivals. You've got documentary festivals. You've got environmental festivals. You've got women's festivals, and also bigger ones too. Let's have a bigger scope to get more of a chance of success. So I approach it that way, more creatively, than say, let's just go for big ones first, see what happens, because that's not always the right way to go. Yeah. So really stand out and do videos on social media is good, like doing like a top tip with Rebekah kind of thing I normally do is really good to then get a good rapport as well.
Okay, yeah, sounds wise, sounds very wise, makes a lot of sense as well. For people that are in the film industry that are listening, maybe they're not a huge proportion, maybe they know other people as well, but what would it look like working with a film strategist or film festival strategist? I'm curious as well. Just what would be the start to finish quick version?
So the first thing we have to do is review the film and assess its festival potential. And when we've seen that, we can then start working with you, and it will take us, takes a few days or so to create the strategy. So then we give you feedback on how festival programmers would respond to it, the obstacles, but also the advantages. We then give you an approach to take and why this approach, and then give you a list of festivals, around 40, 45 or more minimum, to submit to get the best chance of success. Then we monitor the strategy and see how well you're doing and check in every 3 months or so, because it's a slow burning process. It's not an overnight process to get results. I wish it was, yeah. But no, it doesn't work that way. It's a slow burner. So then we always keep in touch over 3-month periods to see how you're getting on and see how the film's progressing on the circuit.
Okay, yeah, makes a lot of sense. It's like with everything, isn't it? Like you have to build momentum over time, generally.
Yes. Exactly. That's what it is. It's not a sprint, not a marathon.
Yeah.
Or a sprint. It's a slow burner. So it's not a sprint. It's not like just a quick 5 minutes. Definitely. It takes a bit more time. But then that time's of the essence, because you learn a lot on that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where the value is, that helps build kind of the foundation that then supports you once you've got more momentum going. I think exactly. That's one of the things. It's easy to overlook it, isn't it? And think, well, yes, they were an overnight success. It's like, no, it took them 20 years or whatever.
No,
but you only heard about it overnight, and
exactly. It's like snakes on a plane. It's like, oh, it's this film that overnight it's got this. It hasn't. I've been planning that for months. Yeah. So to be that kind of movie. So it's very different reality to what people think.
patience, isn't it? In it for the long haul, patience and consistency. If you give up, you're not going to win. But if you consistently keep going, follow your passion, then yeah, you will gravitate towards the right place, and people will gravitate towards you as well. And that's where the synergy works, isn't it? That's where business happens.
Yeah.
So, really good stuff. Just as we wrap this up, what would be the best way? You also do a podcast, don't you, for people that are interested more in the film industry and that side of it? Definitely check out the podcast.
Yeah. So the best way to connect would be to my website, which is thefilmfestivaldoctor.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram, which is at Rebekah, that's Rebekah, Film Doctor. So it's Rebekah Film Dr, and that's Instagram. They're the best ways to reach out, and we'll always respond. So we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, sounds good. And you got some stuff on YouTube as well?
Yep. So I've got my YouTube channel, which is also at Rebekah Film Doctor. So it's always the same. Just find me on there. You've got videos there, top tips, and some tips for festival strategy as well. So they're all on there.
Sounds really good. Thank you for what you shared. We've touched on quite a few of your key areas just in a little bit, because it was nice to get insights from experts is always good. That's what we like sharing with listeners as well. Lots more we could chat about, because you're really good at what you do, and you know how to help people. But thank you for what you shared. There'll be a link below for people that want to click through and find out more and learn from you, get in touch with you and things like that as well. And I definitely suggest people take action. Maybe just some of the things that Rebekah shared today, some of the practical stuff, which isn't necessarily film related, it works in business. So make sure you pick one or two things. Don't overwhelm yourself. Try and do lots of things at once. One or two things, prioritize them, put them into practice, get help, get somebody else around you that will support you, that will hold you accountable. Whatever it is you need, you know what you need. We do, even though we don't always admit it. We know deep down what we actually need to do. And this can be a really good prompt and reminder to you, and a nudge to do what it is you need to do, because we want your business to succeed. We want you to be able to add value where you want to add value and what you're passionate about as well. And if you're in a business that you're not passionate about, listen to what Rebekah said earlier about following your passion. I definitely agree with her on that. Life's too short to be stuck somewhere doing something, when really, with help, creativity, and some courage, you can take steps to move out of that and head in the direction that you want to go. Be committed to the long haul. As she said, it's not overnight. It's uncomfortable every time I say that, but it's true. We learn on the way. We become different people, which is what it's all about. At the end of the day, it's how well we grow, isn't it? That's one of the key things. We definitely recommend you take action, one way or another. Thank you, Rebekah, again for everything you shared. Really appreciate it. I've enjoyed chatting with you.
You too.
Yeah. For everybody listening, take that action, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yeukai.businessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.